tell you. You remember, you went to Notre Dame. I went to Corvallis.
Oh my God. Our sisters.
No, I know. Listen, Steve Whiteman, Lisa Whiteman, I partied with you in high school. I don't know if you remember me or not.
My God.
Yeah, I mean, we partied with Steve. I mean, this is so long ago, but I was like, I remember if he remembers because, I mean, there was a ton of times we all hung out.
Well, you look familiar. You know, Steve Whiteman got me my first job at Eddie's Shoe Repair.
Yeah, I know. I know. And then Elisa ended up going to Long Beach State with me, and she was in my sorority. So, and then, you know, George Padilla, George Padilla told me to tell you hi.
Oh, yeah, George, my God. You know, actually, the shoe repair was my only job.
Yeah.
After
this is over, we have to like exchange information because I'd love to talk to you because, I mean, I told a couple people I was interviewing today and they're like, oh my God, tell them hi, you know, because it's just crazy that's that long ago, but yeah.
I'll be 53 in a month, September 13th. I'm turning 53.
Well, I turned 53 July.
You look
30th.
You look beautiful. You look great.
All right, you guys, give me 5 seconds. All right, Terry, give me 5 seconds, and Sherry's going to start this in 3, 2, Sherry.
Hi, everyone. We have a wonderful show today. I alerted a lot of my friends that the legendary Steve Perkins was coming on, and I got the most responses ever. So, Steve Perkins, thank you. You know how to boost a girl's profile. Steve Perkins, he's a drummer from Jane's Addiction, 9 Inch Nails, Pyros, Porno For Pyros. He's the master of that mind-body dichotomy. He can do it all in one sitting. Everyone, please welcome the legendary Steve Perkins.
And with that, he might be a little bit frozen, but Terri, Marie, so Terri, tell us a little bit about Steve.
Yes.
Comes back.
Oh, okay. Well, this is kind of a crazy story. So, we both grew up in the Valley, and Steve went to Notre Dame, and I went to Corvallis. Notre Dame was our brother school, and Corvallis was a sister school. I was a cheerleader at Notre Dame. One of my best friends in high school was best friends with Steve, so we all hung out in high school together. So this is kind of crazy because it's bringing back like old memories from the 80s. So back in the days of Valley Girl. So there you go.
So I'm happy to see him because I ran into him occasionally on things and I had to think about it. But I always, as that drummer, I could never be the drummer that he is. So I always admire that from a distance. And, you know, it's one of those things where I pay homage to that. But again, Sherry, thank you for that introduction because he's done so many great things, obviously. And I just adore him. I don't know him like you know,
yes.
like you know him, Terri, but I'm glad to have him on our show, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan. It's just crazy, you know, it's being in high school and then, you know, being a fan later in life and then losing touch with them. And then now he's here on the show. So this is really exciting for me.
Sherry, until he comes.
Brian, should we
when he comes back.
Should we start again when he comes back?
No, we'll just keep it going. He'll come back. There's something happened on his end, but we'll just keep it going. But talk about, what do you like from that band? What do you like from Jane's Addiction, Porno For Pyros, anything like that from your point of view, Sherry?
Well, the three, they're both different, but what I'm learning from Steve Perkins is just his smooth quality. You know, like, it's amazing how, you know, he's, like I said, it's the mind-body experience where he can get, you know, his arms to coordinate with his mind, to coordinate with his feet, his core. You know, there's so much going on that it takes a unique person to be able to be a drummer, I think. I don't know. I don't have a lot of rhythm myself, so. There he is.
He's back.
That was the shortest interview I've ever done. I've done some short but I've never that short.
Uh-oh, we lose you. Okay, I thought we lost you again there.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for having me. And this is the real me. Before that was like a hologram. That wasn't the real me. This is it. You've got me now.
All right, so Steve, turn yourself around so we can have you from top to bottom. He's having issues on his end.
Well, That's the beauty of the internet having to do Zoom in the COVID era.
Exactly.
You know,
I'm finding out more that you do them late in the afternoon, the more problems that you will have. So that's why
I think, yeah, more people are on the internet. I mean, I've been having issues with my internet here too, but I guess, you know, there's more traffic.
yeah, and that's all that is. All right, Terri, favorite rock bands until he comes back. Favorite rock bands, Terri.
Yes. My favorite rock bands, well, Jane's Addiction's up there, so is Nine Inch Nails, so is Foo Fighters. Let me see, so is Nirvana, and then you want to talk about 80s bands. I mean, I don't know, I love AC/DC, love Led Zeppelin. I mean, I'm a huge music fan, so I mean, I like, you know, a lot of, I'm a rocker, but mostly though, as we know, so, as we talked about, Brian.
And Cheryl,
Frozen.
Know what you like.
Brian, I think we should start again because I think that people want to hear from Steven more than us. Could we start again? Maybe if we unplug and start again, it would help.
Because, all right, so here's what I would have to do. I would have to keep this. I want to keep this segment because it's behind the scenes and before that, or else I have to send out a whole new link again. That's why.
Oh, I see. I didn't know.
Because you lose it all ahead of time. That's why. And then they all love this stuff in general because anything that they see is good.
There he is.
They back. Okay.
I can't believe it.
You're getting
in the
a bunch of phone calls, huh?
No,
You're
no one
such a
calls
rock
me.
star. You're crashing the system.
No one calls me anymore. I'm like, I'm solo out here. But hey, I'm here now, and I've got my obey sticker behind me,
Yay.
so we're safe. But you know, Corvallis and Notre Dame had a dance, and not one kid danced with the other. It wasn't a dance. It was like a stand.
Yeah. Now that one, I was like telling Brian, this is back in the days of you know, Valley Girl, where I actually did hang out at the Galleria. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm dating myself, but my mom used to, because we were talking that we had a mutual friend, Alicia, and I would go to the Galleria every weekend. So, and my mom would hook us up.
We had Sega Center, Mexican Dan.
Yeah.
You know, the good stuff. But you can always go back to Fast Mountain, Ridgemont High. And
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, because I know that I went to see you play with Steve and Alicia. Was it Disaster? Was that the
That's
band?
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, I think it was at, I don't know, I was at Sunset. Which bar was it? I can't remember. Was it Whiskey?
We did the Roxy twice and the Troubadour twice, and then we broke
Troubadour.
up.
It was the Troubadour. Yep.
So, you know, that was pretty much my first band. Once I saw Rat and Motley and all those bands playing those places, I thought all you had to do is book a gig and you could play those places, and you know, you felt like you made it.
Yeah, because I remember at that concert you played at Troubadour, I mean, the four of us hung out afterwards.
Absolutely, I remember.
Yes. Yeah, now you remember.
Hey, so Steve,
so crazy.
with this,
Go on.
so Steve, I want to have as much time with you. So Sherry, I'm going to have you start your introduction in 5 seconds. Anytime you're ready.
We're ready.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. We've got legendary drummer from Pyro for everyone. We've got Steve Perkins here. And hi, Steve. Welcome.
You know, I feel welcome. I do. You guys are very charming and very warm. And it's a great Friday. You know, we made it through another week.
Yeah. Where are you, Steve? Are you in California?
Yep, I'm in Los Angeles, not too far from Notre Dame.
You're right by my mom's house.
Yeah,
my mom still lives in the same house that, you know, I grew up in. And if people are tuning in, Steve and I went to high school together. He went to all boys school. I went to all girls school, and we had our dances together. The cheerleaders, you know, football players. Yeah, but it was back in the 80s. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to be here. And I tell you, with the last 120 days of like holding on to all this energy, it's so nice to see some family and friends on the phone here. And thank you for having me.
We're excited to have you.
Stephen, what got you interested in drumming? What was it that piqued you to want to get
Well,
behind the
there's
drum
this
set?
great jazz drummer named Gene Krupa, and he was playing a lot of swing gigs back in 1938, 39 with Benny Goodman. And there's a great song called Sing, Sing, Sing. And this song has got drums all over it. And I watched the movie at 10 years old about Benny Goodman, and they had the real Gene Krupa playing himself. And every time they went to Gene Krupa, he was jamming on the drums. And then they go to the conservative audience, and there was this husband tapping on the table. And the wife looked at him and said, "You can't do that." And then they went to her feet, and she was tapping her feet. And I was like, yeah, that's the job for me, man. It's unreliable to the point where you can't rely on anybody to do the right thing when they hear a jungle beat. And that's how
Yeah,
was never,
no, for me, oftentimes it's the drum beat that will get me, you know, you're the first impression of a song oftentimes.
Yeah.
You know, is there a particular, I was watching you on that show that they did profiling you, Industry Innovators, and you and I both like When the Levee Breaks, and you were so smooth in that drum solo. What is one of your favorite drum solos that you like to perform?
That's interesting. You know, when it comes to a drum solo, because a drummer's like a tennis player, you need someone to play with.
Exactly.
Right? But when you take a solo, I try to be more musical and lyrical and tell the story. So I like it to have a start, a middle, and a big finale. And so every drum solo, I think, should take from the environment. And if I'm playing somewhere in Miami Beach, I'm going to look around and try to incorporate what I see and feel. If I'm playing a drum solo in Bogota, Colombia, and then I go in that direction. So, you know, it's like hearing the rhythms of Africa and then watching an elephant walk. They make sense. If you hear the rhythms come out of New York City and look at the streets with the lights and the cars, that makes sense. So I try to take my environment and put it right into the solo. But my favorite solos is when I'm inspired by the music and let that kind of just take me into, like I say, a lyrical storytelling vibe. And it's not about technique or chops, but that's got to be there. But it's about making people move. And I think just like any great athlete, when you practice, you play kind of hard, but when you play the game, you go for it. So I don't like to practice drum solos. I like to go for it in front of people. And I think that's what turns me on the most. Even as a kid, I'd play alone in my drum room. And then when a friend would come over and I'd play and see them react. And I was like, wow, this is not just for me. This is actually, it's a social conduit. And being from LA, there's these drum schools in Venice, California that happen every Sunday. And you see everybody just moving their bodies and relaxing and getting, you know, loose. And I thought, this is the job for me, man. And even during the old days in high school, people would bring their party favors to the party. Yeah. I would play shakers and bongos. And I'd say, this is how I kind of loosen up the vibe with my rhythm.
Yeah, I have a question. Like going from high school to playing in Disaster, then being with Jane's Addiction, how was that to transition just, you know, from becoming, you know, from playing at the Troubadour to becoming, you know, famous in Jane's Addiction? How did that feel? You know, I mean.
Well, there's always that feeling of responsibility the drummer has. Like I say, to get people to move and get them to loosen up. So if I'm playing in front of 10 people or 10,000 or 100,000, it's the same intent. I'm sitting at my drum set, which is my vehicle, and I'm trying to, you know, drive the music, drive the experience. Now, when you play a small club, it's kind of like this conversation. There's no distractions. It's quiet, and you can play right to the audience. When you play a big festival and you see people doing bungee jumps 100 yards away and people on a Ferris wheel, and there's all this other stuff going on, it's kind of like having a conversation and someone else is in the room. You get distracted. Like, hey, dude, oh, hold on, back to the phone call. So those distractions aren't bad, but they take you away from that intimate moment. But I like both of those experiences. And my favorite thing is, I think, the big festivals when there's other band members from other bands watching, and that competitive spirit kicks in. I think the audience benefits from that. You know, Rage Against the Machine just played. What are you going to bring? And after you is Foo Fighters. What are they going to bring? And I think those shows really increase the energy of the whole audience experience. And one of my favorite bands, Grateful Dead, the guitar player, Jerry Garcia, said when he came into Woodstock, you don't see this many people together unless it's a battlefield. But look at music. Music can bring all those people together like a flock of birds or a school of fish. And it's not often you can get people to move together in rhythm without a drum. You got to have a drum set, you know? So that's really the experience of playing to a small club or a large club, or even doing sessions with some of the great producers. It all kind of comes back to the responsibility of the drummer to make people move and not get in the way of the song, but still put your personality in it. And, you know, that's why I love jazz growing up, because all the drummers had a lot of personality. They all sounded quite different. But no one in high school was playing piano or trombone or saxophone. They were playing rock and roll.
Get crushed.
So that was what I was surrounded with. But I think the drummer's job is so important, and you just can't have a great band without a great drummer. And, you know, all the great bands usually have one of the great drummers. And not to say we had that, but my favorite bands, The Police, Rush, Zeppelin, The Who, they all had great drummers. And that's what I aspire to be, is a drummer that stands out but doesn't get in the way.
Okay, so I got to jump in on this one. Because us drummers bang harder, and I do put you in that group as Neil Peart, you know, Stuart Copeland, Alex Van Halen, you, Buddy Rich, and Gene Cooper, as you were saying. And Sing, Sing, Sing is one of my favorite songs. I play it almost every day, because I'm watching the drum corps playing that. So those beats, putting that all together, you got to have that great rhythm section, meaning you got to have that great percussionist or drummer. So for you, I do put you in the same group as those guys, and I met all of them at one point. It was an honor to meet them because, again, I was not that studios, that drummer. I was more of that drummer that marched and played all percussion on the drum and bugle corps. But again, as Sherry would say, having that beat or not being able to have that beat, that's what drives everything. And so for that, it's an honor to have you on our show with you, Dad, and talk about those aspects, because I didn't know you liked jazz. But drum solos, I thought so. I just wasn't sure.
You know, and I always think about the rhythm section. I compare it to one of my favorite artists, M.C. Escher. And he would do a lithograph with white ducks and black ducks. And you don't know if you're looking at the white one or the black one, but they go together and they somehow make a pattern, and it goes right off the page. And that's how a great rhythm section is. They lock, and you don't have to focus on one or the other. It's a union. And so my favorite rhythm sections are really the core of all my love of music. And that's why jazz music really turns me on, is because you've got a drummer playing with a pianist or an upright bass player, and they listen to each other and they're having a conversation. And, you know, I love Motown, but the conversation was kind of taken out. The Motown drummer just kept the beat so people can move. And then came rock and roll, and that was like Motown meets jazz. You had a beat, but you also had conversation, like the drummer from Jimi Hendrix, Mitch Mitchell. So jazzy, but he was like fireworks at all times, but never got in the way of Jimmy. You know, and it was like I say, a tennis match. And if a great tennis player is playing somebody else who's not great, he's never going to be able to have a rally. You don't want to ace the guy every time. You want to play. So you're always looking for players that can challenge you, players that can, call and respond, and you can say something and they can say it back. And also sometimes, when you're on the phone with someone, you talk over each other and there's no rhythm. You can hear a great rhythm when people give each other and they listen. And someone says something and then they take a pause and then someone responds. And I think that's what you hear in those great bands. When you listen to the Police, there's only 3 guys, but it sounds like there's 5 or 6 guys. And it's just unbelievable because they all find their own space. And, with drums, I always want to practice my chops and be lightning fast, but that's not always what you need in the music. But you want to have that in your back pocket if you need it. But as you get better at the instrument, it's all about choices. What are you going to do with those chops? When are you going to show them off, and when are you going to hold back? And, playing with great bass players, Flea, Mike Watt, you know, Rob Wasserman, Tony Franklin, Eric Avery from Jane's. All these guys taught me a lesson on how to listen, you know, and not just bring my own flavor and say, this is what it's going to be, but actually listen to what they bring, and then we can converse and then bring it up a level. You know, growing up with Dave Navarro went to Notre Dame with me, and there was a few different milestones. You know, when I started drums, it was pillows and pads for 3 years, and there was no music. It was just learning how to bounce something off a surface. And then for my bar mitzvah at 13, I got a drum set. And then I was like, oh, wait, it's an instrument. It's actually musical. It's not just surfaces like a pillow. And then I met Dave, and I went to high school, and I had a partner in crime. And then I took it to another level. And it keeps on happening to me. I try to find new people to play with and hit another level that inspires, you know, more in depth. I guess in a sense, a mirror. Look at yourself and see what you can do to make yourself better as a musician and not get in the way, you know? And then of course, when you're alone, like for the last 120 days, like all of us, you either lose focus or gain focus. And I've been very focused in my drum room, trying to recapture that spirit of what I had when I was 15, of not having anybody to play with and just practicing my chops, you know? So I can't wait to get together with other musicians live and see what happens after this horrendous lockdown.
Yes.
And I think that's the light at the end of the tunnel, is the music and the art that's going to come out of this is going to be so deep, you know, and you got to think what was happening outside Picasso's door or Rembrandt's door or, you know, Salvador Dali's door. The art lives on. You don't care what was happening in the world at the time, because the art can live on. And I think great music does that. You know, Jane's Addiction's music could be written in 1820 or 1920 or 2020. It's just the song and the lyrics reflect the times. And that's the other thing a drummer has, is the attitude to reflect off the poem. And not only the syllables and the arrangement of the guy singing, but what the topic is, what's the subject matter, and take those feelings and emotions and bring them into the drum set. And, you know, when Jane's Addiction singer says 3, 4, bam, it feels like, well, it doesn't feel like we're breaking something. It feels like we're creating something. And that's what I want. I want people to go home and make love, not war, after they listen to me play drums, you know?
Stephen, is there any, like, you're the adrenaline driver for your audience. Is there, like, I know if I don't want to go to the gym, I'll put something, you know, like, with your speed and everything just to pump me up. So before a performance, do you have anything that, you know, a tradition or something that gets you driven and drive and ready to go on stage?
Absolutely. You know, I've got my own little routine of warming up the hands and feet to make sure the endurance and the athletic side of me is ready to go hit it. But it's about laughing with friends backstage, giving all my friends backstage passes so we can hang out, not like, oh, I can't find you, I'll see you after the show. I hate that. I want to hang out with my friends and family before the show and experience what they are, you know, because I love the fact that I've got a gig and people are at home getting ready for it. And they're listening to music and they're getting excited to see the band. And when they show up, I'm like, come backstage, let's talk, let's hang, how you been? And that kind of feeds me. And then also Jane's Addiction and most of the bands I'm in, we've never been one of those bands that says no one's allowed on stage or side stage. We want our friends there near us, not in the audience, but next to us, so we can give them the wink. Hey man, you're here. So it's really about the relationships I have with people that drives me. You know, of course, I always got great rock and roll or jazz playing backstage to get you hyped up. And I'm very, in a sense, health oriented for the gig. I don't want to party before the show. I want to stay straight, and so I can knock it out of the park. And then afterwards, loosen up. But it is about the family and friends and making people laugh and them making me laugh. And that really feeds my heart before I play.
Yeah, I think the joy that music brings people is irreplaceable.
It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And when a great song goes worldwide and global, you got to wonder how and why. Why does everybody react to the same song? There's something very spiritual about that, you know. And music is just a wave. And those waves don't go away. They don't disappear. You hit a drum, it's a sonic wave, and it's still out there somewhere.
Well, if you think about it, you feel the drum beat in your heart, you know, when you listen to music, right? You know, most people do. So
Absolutely. And I remember as a kid, people saying, hey, look at that star. You're looking into the past. That star already burnt out, but it took 10,000 light years to get here. And I would think that doesn't make any sense. But if it's true, man, I hit a drum, that wave is going way out into space. It's still there. And Gene Krupa's drum solo is out there, you know? And one of my favorite African drummers, Babatunde Alatunji and Fela Kuti, they got rhythms that are still out there, even though they played them 20, 30, 40 years ago. They don't disappear. And so those sonic waves heal people. And you got to wonder how a flock of birds or a school of fish does it. How do the whole group of starlings in the air do those waves? There's a certain connection, and human beings have it, but we seem to get disconnected. But music connects us, you know? And, you know, you're not going to get 10,000 people to stand in front of Mona Lisa, but you can get 10,000 people to stand in front of a rock show, and it's not a problem, you know, and people are needing that. So, you know, I think music and art and poetry and books and film, they're timeless. And, you know, Tom Sawyer is still going to be a great book 50 years from now and 60 years ago. And I think the same thing goes with a great Beatles song, you know, and it touches the heart and it feels warm. And you lose the greats, Mozart and Beethoven and John Lennon. They're not here anymore, but we can listen and really get touched by what they were saying and feeling. And, you know, you never know exactly what Beethoven sounded like because they couldn't record him. He wrote it down. And you can have someone sit at a piano and play Beethoven, and you're like, I can feel where he was coming from. And so I love that reach that music has, and it goes way back and it goes way forward. And, you know, Jane's Addiction, we're all friends and we love each other. So when we get on stage, it's real. And that's the reason we break up so many times, because if it doesn't feel right, let's not get on stage and be a fraud. Let's not do it for the money. Let's do it because we love each other. And if there's a month or a year or 5 years we don't play, it's because we need to take a break. So when we get back on stage, it's authentic.
No, that's amazing, Stephen, that you said like everything in nature has rhythm, like the birds flying. And you've definitely created a legacy for yourself. Where were you when you first heard yourself on the radio? What band or song was it? And I'm just curious about that.
Absolutely. Well, there was a small radio station in LA called KXLU, which was a college radio. But I remember the first time Jane's Addiction went to Dallas, Texas, and there's a street called Deep Ellum, and there's a bunch of clubs on Deep Ellum. We did our sound check, and then we went to get some Mexican food, and we heard one of our songs, Pigs and Zen, on FM radio in Dallas, Texas. And I just thought, how does this song get all the way over here? And at that moment, I get to hear it and rock out to it. And the lyrics, Pigs and Zen, meant so much to me, because Perry's poems are really deep, because I have my own interpretation, but then I can ask the guy that wrote it what he meant. And so I know what he's talking about. So Pigs and Zen in Dallas, 1987, was a great moment of me hearing ourselves on the radio. That's a great question. Thank you.
Do you think that that's when you realized your life was going to change?
Well, you know what? It was really about disaster at the Troubadour.
Yeah.
Because I had no confidence and I had no game. But after that show, I felt like I had confidence and I could actually talk to girls, you know,
Well,
or they talk to me.
I have to tell you, I went to those shows at the Troubadour and hung out with you guys then, and it was so much fun. I mean, those are some of the funnest times was like going to the Troubadour. I think the
Terri,
Troubadour's
did
gone.
he have game? Terri, he had game.
Do you remember there was a girl, Kim, with blonde hair, Kim Droge.
Kim Droge was a friend of mine. Yeah, I went to high school. Yes.
Okay, so I remember, she was the most beautiful thing to me, but I couldn't talk to her. But after Jane's Addiction show, I saw her in San Diego, Hey, I can go
That's-
talk to her. I had confidence.
Say hi to Kim now.
She's on my Facebook. She's married, and I think she lives in North Carolina. She doesn't live in California, but I know she's married and has like 3 kids or something. I don't know.
That's great, but that's the truth. I remember there's no way I'll talk to this pretty girl, and then after the concert, I was like, there's no way I won't talk to this girl. You know?
You know, that's that drummer's
Hey,
confidence after you've done a good thing too. Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah.
Stephen, you've played so many festivals, Lollapalooza, things like that. I know they're all great for you. Does anyone in particular stand out for you?
Absolutely. There's these beautiful festivals in England. You know, there's Reading and then Glastonbury, and they're so massive. And there's so many different types of bands playing through the weekend. And I love that kind of experience, not only being one of the musicians there, but walking around and tripping out and tasting the food and smelling the smells and hearing the music. And that all is what the experience is for me. I like to be an audience member, not just a cast member. You know, I want to watch the show. Yeah. And the first Lollapalooza in '91, James didn't play till 9:30 p.m., but I would get there at 2 p.m. and watch Butthole Surfers, Henry Rollins, Ice-T, Living Colour. I'd watch every band every day because I just didn't want to miss any of it. I really wanted to get inspired and hang out with other musicians. And so, you know, those festivals, like I said earlier, they're competitive, and that is kind of what brings the best out of the musician. And you kind of want to show off a little, you know, because all these players are there. Mm-hmm. And that just benefits the audience in so many ways. But, you know, there's a great concert that I can't wait to do when everything is behind us. And, you know, we had BC before COVID. I can't wait for AC after COVID. And, you know, it would be somehow bringing a drum to Burning Man and just being part of that community. Yeah. And just disappear into the dust cloud, you know?
Stephen, have you ever performed in those natural acoustic areas like the Gorge or things like that? And does it sound different for you or better or a different tone for you?
Absolutely. You know, the outdoor places, not only is spiritually it feels better than being indoors with a ceiling and walls, but there is this sound quality you get that it's just so natural because you're not getting any reverb from the room and you're just playing to the space out there. And just like hearing possibly a dog bark in your kitchen could be a little harsh, but a dog barking at the park, it sounds fine. It doesn't bother you. I feel the same way with drums and music. Let the music go natural, you know, and the Gorge is one of the greatest places, Red Rocks. And, you know, when you travel through Europe and Greece, there's so many places like that, you know, and those outdoor theaters, the amphitheaters. And there's a spot in LA called John Anson Ford on Barham. And Jane's Addiction did 7 nights in a row, 1988. And I lived right off Lancashire at the time, which is about a half mile from the concert. And I remember my parents saying they heard us playing at night. I don't know if they did or not, but you know, it's like you hear bands playing at the Hollywood Bowl when you drive by. It's like, it's a beautiful, you know, it's like you can't get away from it. They're like those sonic waves are going to travel through the whole city. And I love that feeling of doing drum circles. I do a lot of them. And I do it with the MS community because I have a few people in my life that have multiple sclerosis. So I'm doing drum circles for the MS community. And I've been doing, you know, before COVID, I would go to schools and, you know, homes for the elderly and do drum circles. And that to me is like, it doesn't matter if Jane's Addiction sold 1 record or 1 million. I'm connecting with people with the drum. And so the drum circle to me is the way to ground myself. And even with Jane's Addiction, I would show up 2 or 3 hours before the gig, set up a drum in the parking lot, do drum circles, and people will be driving and parking going, wait a minute, how could that be the guy that's in the band sitting out here doing a drum circle? Because I don't want to be in a hotel waiting for the gig. I want to be there hitting something, you know?
Stephen, don't you have a pretty amazing 10-year-old prodigy playing guitar?
Yeah, you know, my kid, he's 10 and a half, and we jam a lot together. He's playing guitar. He's a lefty. So yesterday was National Lefties Day. But, you know, I'm trying to inspire him, but also let him find his own path. And he said he's working on his own record. It's about mice. And I asked him if he needed a drummer, and he said no, he wants to write all the drum beats himself. And
Oh.
you know, he said, well, if you need any advice, I'm there. But I get it, man. It's wonderful to have another musician, artist. My wife's an artist, and my son, he likes to do art and play music. And he also likes to play soccer and basketball and go swimming. You know, he's a natural little 10-year-old, you know, and the last 3 months have been crazy hard for kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, he would come home from school before COVID with grass stains, and he's sweaty, and he had a great tackle football game with the friends, and all that kind of socializing's out the window. So he has taken it internally and puts it on his guitar, and he's writing poetry, and he's had some great poems. I don't think he realizes it, but they're inspired by this lockdown, and he's got something to say, and me and my wife listen. I think that's important. You got to listen to what your kids are saying, you know, and it's hard to see, you know, I can't imagine being a 16-year-old right now trying to get a date, you know, and thinking that you've gone through puberty and now's your chance to meet someone and you can't even go outside. But I told him as a 10-and-a-half-year-old, this will pass soon, and we won't even talk about it anymore, that COVID bullshit, you know.
So, Stephen,
have any
I want to
performances
thank you
coming up?
for coming up. We only got about 30 seconds left. I want to know, is it possible that we can do a part 2 with you on a different day? Is that possible?
Yes.
That's 100% happy.
Sherry, you be
Yeah,
okay with
of
that?
course.
Sherry, you be okay with that?
Bring your
Love it.
son, Stephen. Bring your son and your wife.
Yeah,
Okay,
Stephen,
cool.
you bring your, Stephen, I'll bring my drum pads. They're upstairs. I should have brought them because I'm always playing all the time. So anyhow, for that, so for Sherry,
It's a good thing, man.
Stephen Perkins, thank you for coming on Movie Reviews and More. And if you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours because the world needs it. We will see you next week.